August 15th, 1947, India became an independent nation. But let me ask you a simple question. Was independence alone enough to run a country? If someone had asked on the very next day, who will choose the Prime Minister? How will the government be formed? Who will protect the rights of citizens? Who will deliver justice? How will powers be divided between the Union and the states? Who had the answers? If a nation has no clear answers to these questions, freedom can quickly turn into confusion and confusion into chaos. So the biggest challenge before independent India was not just achieving freedom, it was governing that freedom. And that is exactly where the Constitution of India begins. In today's video, we'll understand why independent India needed a constitution, how the idea of a Constituent Assembly emerged, and how the vision of our founding leaders laid the foundation of the world's largest democracy. By the end of this video, you'll not only know the history behind the Constitution, but also understand why this topic is one of the most important for every UPSC aspirant. I am Rahul Tajnekar, your UPSC mentor and coach, director of Rahul Sir's IAS Academy Nagpur, and author of the book Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude, an ultimate guide to score 160 plus marks. Let's begin. The Constitution is much more than a legal document. It is the blueprint of the Indian Republic. It defines how the government functions, protects the rights of every citizen, distributes powers among different institutions, and establishes the values on which our democracy stands. When our constitution was drafted, the objective was not merely to create a rule book. The objective was to build a nation where every citizen would enjoy equal opportunity, irrespective of religion, caste, language, gender, or economic background. The Constitution promises justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. But remember something very important. A constitution does not become successful simply because it is well written. Its true strength depends upon the character of the people who follow it. As Dr. B.R. Ambedkar rightly observed, even the best constitution can fail if those responsible for implementing it fail. And even an average constitution can succeed when guided by responsible citizens and ethical leaders. That is why understanding the Constitution is not just important for the UPSC examination. It is essential for becoming an informed citizen of India. Now let's travel back in time. For nearly 2 centuries, India remained under British rule. During this period, many laws were enacted, but these laws were never framed by representatives chosen by the people of India. They reflected the priorities of a colonial government, not the aspirations of the Indian people. The freedom struggle was therefore much more than a movement against British rule. It was a movement to reclaim the right of Indians to decide their own future. Finally, on 15th August 1947, India achieved independence. The celebrations were historic. But once the celebrations ended, a much bigger question stood before the nation. How will this newly independent country be governed? Should India continue with colonial laws, or should independent India write its own constitution based on its own needs, values, and aspirations? Our leaders chose the second path, and that decision changed the future of India forever. Before we continue, if you're serious about your UPSC preparation and would like to know more about our online and offline batches, simply call us or WhatsApp START on the number displayed on your screen or given in the description below. Our team will guide you with complete details. Now, let's continue. Imagine the situation in 1947. India was one of the most diverse societies in the world. Different religions, hundreds of languages, thousands of communities. Princely states, British provinces, economic inequality, social discrimination, the trauma of partition, refugee rehabilitation, food shortages, administrative challenges. And yet, despite all these differences, one nation had to be built. That required something more powerful than military strength or political speeches. It required a common vision, a shared framework, a document that every citizen, every government institution, and every future generation would respect. That document became the Constitution of India. Now let's understand how the idea of a constitution actually began. Many people believe that the Constitution was written only after India became independent, but that's not true. The idea of Indians writing their own constitution had emerged much before independence. In 1934, a political thinker named M.N. Roy proposed that the Constitution of India should be drafted by a Constituent Assembly elected by the people of India. At that time, this was a revolutionary idea. Remember, India was still under British rule. The British Parliament made laws for India, and Indians had very little say in deciding how they would be governed. The proposal of a Constituent Assembly was therefore not just about writing a legal document, it was about asserting India's right to decide its own future. Gradually, this idea gained widespread support. The Indian National Congress adopted it as one of its major demands. Over the next several years, the demand for a constituent assembly became an integral part of the freedom movement. The struggle was no longer only about removing British rule. It was also about ensuring that independent India would govern itself according to laws made by Indians for Indians. Finally, after years of political negotiations and growing pressure from Indian leaders, the British government accepted this demand. In 1946, under the Cabinet Mission Plan, the Constituent Assembly of India was established. This was not just another committee. It was one of the most important institutions in modern Indian history. Its responsibility was nothing less than designing the future of an independent nation. The Constituent Assembly initially had a total strength of 389 members. These members represented different provinces, princely states, communities, and political backgrounds. Although they belonged to different ideologies and regions, they were united by one common purpose: to build a democratic India. The Constituent Assembly met for the first time on the 9th of December 1946. Try to imagine that moment. India was not yet fully independent. The future of the country was uncertain. The possibility of partition was becoming stronger. Communal tensions were rising. Economic conditions were difficult. Yet, inside the assembly hall, there was a remarkable sense of hope. The leaders gathered there believed that India would soon become a free nation, and when that happened, it must have a constitution that reflected its own values rather than colonial interests. Just a few days later, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru introduced what came to be known as the Objective Resolution. This was much more than a formal resolution. It was a vision statement for the India that was about to be born. It declared that India would become an independent, sovereign nation. It promised justice for all, liberty for every citizen, equality of opportunity, and dignity for every individual. On the 22nd of January 1947, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Objective Resolution. Many of the ideals expressed in this resolution would later find their place in the preamble of the Constitution. In many ways, it became the philosophical foundation of the Constitution of India. Before we move ahead, if you're serious about clearing UPSC and want a personalized roadmap for your preparation, you can book a UPSC strategy session with me. During this session, we'll assess your current preparation, identify your strengths and weaknesses, and create a focused strategy to maximize your chances of success. You'll find the booking link in the description below. Now, let's continue. Once the vision had been defined, the next challenge was even bigger. How do you write a constitution for a country as vast and diverse as India? A country with hundreds of languages, different religions, different cultures, different legal traditions, different social realities. The Constituent Assembly understood that this enormous responsibility could not be handled by one committee alone. So it formed several committees to deal with different aspects of constitution making. But among all these committees, one became the most significant, the Drafting Committee. And it was this committee that would transform the ideas, debates, and recommendations of the Constituent Assembly into the written constitution that governs India even today. In the next part, we'll understand how the Drafting Committee was formed, why Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was chosen as its chairman, and how the Constitution of India was finally drafted after one of the most remarkable democratic exercises in world history. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to download our app using the link in the description for free daily current affairs, quizzes, and other useful study resources. Also, watch my previous video on blank. But here's something fascinating. Most people believe that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar wrote the constitution entirely on his own. Is that really true? Who actually drafted the constitution? How much was borrowed from other countries? And why did the constitution take 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days to complete? We'll answer all these questions in the next episode. I'm Rahul Tajnekar. See you in the next one.